Good morning, one and all. Good to see everyone logging on. We're on live on Facebook and YouTube. So good morning to all of you that are participating on the two different platforms. Good to have you. Cheryl. Wonderful. Just give me a moment here. Shalom. Good morning to Robert Levy, Marion Sachs, Steve Nussel. Thank you for saying hello. Linda Drew and Jaime. Okay. Great. Boker Tov to Dennis Solomons. Just waiting for everybody to log on. Michael Stein, good morning. Just this. Haley Lipworth, good morning. Yes, Norman, you got the right. Norman Stein, you're in the right chat. Today is Wednesday, 22nd of April. Okay, Manfred Kalmer, good morning. Wayne Miller, good to see you. Great. Hope you're all keeping well. Morning, Tracy Mindel. Frozen. Oy. Robert Levy says my screen is frozen. Can anybody here confirm? Frozen. Why is it frozen? Morning, Felicia Jenks. Percy Suntop, good morning. Welcome aboard. Mark Wachenheimer, good morning. Arnold Orkin, good morning. Let's just go back to the comment we just had. My screen is frozen. Is that correct? Are you guys sensing that as well? Just let me know if you're all seeing that. Shirley Feldman, good morning. Good screen. Thank you. Well, okay. Thank you. I'm just got. Great. My lips are moving. Thank God. Thank God we're moving. That's the bracha of today. Thank God we're moving. Baruch Hashem. That's all we can say. Baruch Hashem. Okay. All right. We're ready to start. Thank you to one and all for joining us. I appreciate you being here. Trying to get my screens all in line here. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. Good to see you all here. So welcome aboard. Just want to see what I'm holding. If you are logging on now, please do share your screen. Share your activity so that others can see what you're up to. Great. Okay. Welcome aboard to our YouTube viewers, to our Facebook viewers. Good to have you all here. I'd like to welcome you to another day of learning. Today we are going to focus on the connection that the sanctuary has no sound. Norman Stein says no sound. Norman, you said frozen before. Someone said frozen before and now no sound. Is that no sound me or is that no sound you guys? Can you just confirm? We just need to see that everyone's got sound here. Just confirm, guys, that you've got sound. Morning, Rob. Ethan Koffler, welcome aboard. I'm just concerned about Norman Stain's comment about no sound. Let's just get some confirmation here that you can all hear me before I start talking to myself. Loud and clear, Shirley Feldman. Great. Norman, there may be something wrong with your sound on your side. See if you can fix up your speaker. All okay. Thanks, Robert Levy. There are three sections to life. We can divide up and categorize life into three sections. One is that which is holy. One is that which is unholy. And the third is somewhere in between. What does that mean? So if we look at the activities of our lives, what endeavors are we up to? What are we doing with our lives? How do we fill up our time? Now, obviously, during lockdown, things have changed slightly. But generally speaking, when we're out and about, and maybe this is why we're in lockdown, to think about all this, perhaps, is that when we're up and about, there's three different activities we're involved in. We're involved in matters that are holy matters, that are spiritual, divine, godly, Jewish, Torah. And that may be shul, or there may be a shir that we're part of or attending. And we feel good during that time, don't we? Like now, when we're learning together, it's spiritual, it's divine, it's holy. And it feels good. We feel focused, we feel uplifted, we feel motivated, we feel inspired, hopefully, if the shir is inspiring. That's one area of service that we're involved in. Now, if you think about it, now we've been learning every day at 10:30 every day. We've had a great crowd. We don't always learn every day. If we get once a week a shir in, we feel proud of ourselves. If we get to shul on Friday night or Shabbos day, we feel proud of ourselves because that's the bit of time that we have engaging in spiritual endeavors and activities. Then, unfortunately, because we are human beings, there's aspects of our lives that are not so holy. Aspects of our lives that are not so holy. Things that are, quote unquote, perhaps treif. Doesn't necessarily mean that the food is treif, but the activity is not holy. For example, if I'm on the phone, as we spoke yesterday about Lashon Hara, evil slander. If I'm on the phone to friends talking about others, that's not holy activity. If I'm immoral That's not holy activity. Obviously, if I'm eating something I shouldn't be eating, that's not holy activity. That's unholy. That's the opposite of the first category. The first category is holy activity, Jewish activity, Torah activity, learning activity, davening activity. The other category is the activity that is treif, unkosher. And unfortunately, as humans, we have some of that in our lives too. And then there's something in between. And that something in between seems to be neutral. And the question is, which direction does it turn to and turn in? I welcome everybody here. If you are coming, I see people are logging in as we speak. If you're only logging in now, please do say hello, comment, introduce yourself. We'd love to see you, love to hear from you. Feel free to let us know you're here. Neil Herman, you've become a teacher. Homeschooling, hey? So Neil, in order to teach, you have to learn as well. So well done for coming online now and learning. I see people are still logging on as we speak. So this is great. I love seeing your activity. Thank you for joining us. Shelley Stain, good morning. Welcome aboard. So for those who have just joined us, we're busy speaking about three categories of life: holy, unholy, in between. Let me just take you for a moment to the temple. Okay, because as we know, we don't have a temple today, but we can learn from what the temple represents. In the temple, there were also three different sections, three different areas of the sanctuary. And maybe we should go from external to internal. Cliff, Ozzy. Thank you, Cliff. I appreciate you joining us today. Good to see you. So the external section of the sanctuary was called the Chatzer. It was a courtyard. That was like outside. That's where the wash basin was. That's where the large altar, the large mizbeach was, where animals were offered up. That was called the courtyard. Then the next step you had was called the Kodesh, or the Heichal. Well, that's what they call the sanctuary. In the sanctuary, you now had the menorah, candelabra. You had the shulchan, the table. And you had the other altar, the smaller altar, the Mizbeach HaKetoret, where they offered up the incense. And then you had a third category, and the third category was called the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. That's where the Ark was, with the Luchot and the Ten Commandments inside. So you had three different categories, but these three different categories were very, very different to each other. On the one hand, you had the courtyard, the Chatzer, outside, where the wash basin was, which means you were coming there dirty. You were coming there with animals for sin offerings. Animals, the animalistic, the physical, the mundane. Where the contrast to that was the Holy of Holies. And the Holy of Holies was obviously the Ark. That's where the tablets were. That's where the holiest of activities of the Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippur was. He only went there once a year. He went to the Holy of Holies. But that's very different to the courtyard. The courtyard, you came raw, raw, straight from work, so to speak. That's why you had to wash your hands off by the wash basin. That's where you brought your animalistic asses for sin that you were involved in. That was all outside. Then you had the Holy of Holies, deep within, deep inside. And somewhere in between was the Heichal, the sanctuary, which is somewhere in between holy and mundane. It wasn't the Holy of Holies, but it also wasn't the courtyard outside. What was it? It was neutral. They used oil, they used incense, They use bread. These are all physical elements within the world. But the job was to take the neutral of the world and transform that into something purposeful and godly at the same time. Good morning, Neil, Lionel Rubin. Good morning, Neil. Oi, oi, oi. Okay, oi. Oi, oi, oi is exactly how we're feeling sometimes these days. Oi, oi, oi. Ladies and gentlemen, the majority of our time is spent in the middle category. The majority of our time, we're busy doing regular activities. When I say regular, I mean to say they're not holy per se, but they're not also unholy. You know what I mean? Because how much of our time do we spend doing holy activity? That means davening and learning. Well, I know I can't say this for myself. Good morning, Ellen Krause. Thank you for joining us and for commenting. I appreciate your joining us here. So most of our time is spent in the neutral zone. We're not davening and learning the entire time. I mean, this is unbelievable. The fact that we're learning every day at 10:30 online with now 30 of you, it's unbelievable. But that doesn't happen all the time. And our davening doesn't happen all the time either. We don't have the opportunity to do the holy stuff all the time. We try and find time when we can, but it's not all the time. We're also not doing unholy stuff all the time. Let's give us a little bit of credit. While we may be up to some nonsense, and some of our conduct and our behavior is not appropriate and not faithful, so to speak, we're not always involved. Guys, let's keep the personal chats out of this room. I'll teach you something called WhatsApp. You can communicate directly there. Let's try and keep focused. Okay, so most of our activity, most of our time is spent neutral. Eating, drinking, exercising, working, socializing. That's what we mostly do. And what we don't realize is that there's huge potential in that. Just like the sanctuary, that sanctuary in the temple was the middle ground. It was neutral. And that's where we had the opportunity of transforming that into good, into positive, into holy. So too, we have the opportunity of taking the world around us and making it a better place. Transforming the world around us and elevating it to something more holy. You know, the Hebrew word for nature called Elokim, or Elokein, or Elokim. The word Elokim and Hateva is the same. Same numerical value. 86. Elokim and Hateva are the same numerical value. You know why? Because God created nature. But he concealed himself. He's hiding himself. We don't see God directly in nature. So what's our job? Our job, while engaging in the neutral zone of the world, again, not the holy, because we don't do that all the time, and not the unholy, because obviously that's inappropriate. When we're engaging in mostly the neutral zone, the neutral category of our world, we're dealing with nature. Some call it Mother Nature, but it's nature, created by God, but where he concealed himself. So he's not there. He's not revealed. So what's our job? Our job is to reveal him. If we can reveal kindness in the world, if we can reveal God in the world, in the workplace, in the family place, among our friends, if we can bring godliness or morality or ethics into our neutral zone, what we actually end up doing is we transform our day-to-day activities into something that becomes divine and spiritual. Because that's our role. Our role is to walk into a dark world and to expose light. Our role is to walk into a confused world and expose clarity. Because the world around us conceals God. So what's our job? To find God, to share God. And I think it's very, very relevant to today's times we find ourselves in, as we're dealing with challenges such as lockdown and coronavirus and COVID-19 and economic pressure in South Africa and around the world. So what's our job? Do we cry about it? Do we fall apart? Or do we brace ourselves, become stronger, and find the silver lining? Find the blessings behind the challenges. Dig a little deeper into the nature of the world to expose God. That's what we're here for. We're not here to learn and daven all day long, because we don't learn and daven all day long. We're not here to abuse and misuse the world inappropriately, because that's not right. What we're here to do is to engage in our day-to-day activities and realize that we have the responsibility of exposing and revealing and showing godliness that lies beneath nature of the world, such as COVID-19. I'd love to engage with you all. Maybe share something on the comments. We can hear from you. Questions, comments, answers. Let us know if you'd like to share with us something. Okay, so let's continue. If you have any questions, feel free to post them. If you look at a person, what do you see? Look at your friend. Look at your spouse. Look at your children. What do you see? Let's take a child, for example. Okay, one of our own children. Especially during lockdown, it's challenging. Difficult times right now. And the child's playing up, misbehaving, driving you up the wall, which is very possible. What's our job as parents? Not to get carried away by the misbehavior, not to lose focus by their screaming and shouting, although it's very easy to do that. What must we do? We must dig deep to find their neshama, their soul. Find the neshama, their soul. To expose their true character. And that's what we need to do. Not just children. Take, for example, friends of yours. Friends of yours who are totally disengaged with Jewish life. I know many Jews that don't really have a close connection to Yiddishkeit. What's my job? To reach out and to expose their truth, because I know they have it. It's called a neshama. It's my job to dig a little deeper, to find that neshama inside of them. So they seem to be in no man's land. Let's not call them treif. Let's call them neutral. They don't seem to be anywhere. When I engage with them, I reveal their true identity. I try to. The true neshama. That soul that gives them life. And the same is said hold on one second here. Robert Levy Maureen asks if you're no longer discussing Pirkei Avot. Well, every day the topic changes here. I'm happy to take questions and to discuss whatever you guys would like me to discuss. So a couple of days back, we discussed something from Pirkei Avot, but that's not every day, unless you have a particular question. Greg Hurwitz, all the way from Melbourne, Australia. There you go. Oi, oi, oi for Greg Hurwitz. Shkoyach, Greg, for joining us as well. So I think that the same can be said. Just like we've got a responsibility of looking at a person and exposing their depth and their neshama and their soul, so too we have the responsibility in today's times of nature to try and find the silver lining beneath the nature, to try and find the silver lining beneath the world and the neutral aspects of our lives, and find the holiness in it, find the silver lining in it. You know, there's a famous insight regarding leprosy, because as you know, this week's parasha, this week's Torah portion focuses on leprosy, on tzarat. And what was interesting is that as the Jewish people entered into Israel, their homes or themselves may have become filled with leprosy. What does the Torah tell us? That there was actually a blessing in this. Because when their houses got filled with leprosy, they had to remove the bricks off their house. And as they knocked away at the bricks to remove those bricks that had been contaminated, so to speak, with leprosy, what did they find? They found the gold and silver that the Canaanites had hid in their walls. As the Canaanites heard that the Jewish people are getting closer and closer, they hid away their jewelry and their gold and silver into the walls of their houses. Why did they do that? They were obviously hoping that they would be able to come back one day. And if I can come back, then I'll get my gold and silver back. But that didn't happen. They never came back. And the Jewish people got leprosy on their homes. They knocked away at the bricks. They pulled out the bricks from their home. And what did they find? Gold and silver that the Canaanites had left there. Unbelievable. Martin, welcome aboard to Martin. I'm not sure which Martin that is, but nice to have you here with us. So I'm giving that example of the leprosy to describe everything in life, all aspects of life. It's like the leprosy on the home. The leprosy on the home is a natural occurrence. So what would happen to you if your home suddenly developed leprosy on the walls? You'd have an absolute fit. What's going on over here? Leprosy in my walls. I can't work. I can't live. And what's God saying? Hold on. There's a message here. You got to reveal the neshama. You got to reveal that message, the depth behind it. God sending you a message. When you tear away from the leprosy on the walls of your home, you're going to find the gold and silver of the Canaanites that they hid there. When we tear away from the coronavirus pandemic, lockdown, quarantine, I'm not saying this is easy. I'm saying Torah is telling us the message. Peel away. It's the nature of the world. It's the neutral zone. It's not holy, but it's not treif. It's somewhere in between. It's nature. And the job that we have when dealing with nature of the world is to knock away at the bricks of nature, to knock away at the bricks of leprosy, to pull out those bricks one by one, to be able to expose what? To expose the neshama that lies beneath. That's what it is. Let's apply this message to another area of life. When it comes to Jewish ritual and Jewish observance, I think here too we have a similar message that connects to our discussion. I'll start this with a story. Someone once phoned me up and said to me, Rabbi, we're hosting some non-Jewish colleagues over Shabbat, Friday night, and I know they're going to ask me lots of questions. So can you tell me just a little bit of the background of why we do certain things? So why do we do Kiddush on Friday night? Why do we do Shalom Aleichem? Why do we vas and wash our hands for the meal? And why do we do benching? And just give me some brief, quick answers so that I can share them with my visitors that come on Friday night, my non-Jewish visitors. And I thought to myself, that's interesting. For our kids and our teenagers and our children growing up, we don't ask such questions. We just go on with life. But when the non-Jewish visitor arrives to our home, then we have to have all the answers. We've got to be well prepared to answer him on everything. Why? How come when it comes to our kids in our own home, we don't need to ask questions? We don't need to dig deeper. But when it comes to non-Jewish visitors, suddenly all the answers. Menachem Stern, Rabbi Menachem Stern, all the way from Melbourne, Australia. It's nice to have these visitors. Greg Hurwitz, Menachem Stern. Thank you for joining us here during our learning experience. So my challenge to us all is that we should be asking these questions long before the non-Jew visits our home. We should be asking questions all the time. You know why? Because in rituals, and this ties into my original point, when it comes to rituals and activities, there's the physical, technical parts of the activity, and then there's the inspirational, godly, divine message behind the activity. What do we tend to do? We tend to focus so much on the technical. We tend to focus so much on the logistical. How do you do this and how do you do that? And Kiddush and Shalom Aleichem and washing hands. Has anybody stopped for a moment to ask what's the neshama behind this? What's the neshama behind this neutral, practical, technical activity? What's the meaning behind it? Why are we doing this? Does that mean, does a point touch anyone else here? Do you see what I mean? We've got to ask more questions. We've got to find out more answers. We've got to dig deeper at the bricks of the leprosy, of nature, of technical rituals. Remove the stones and expose meaning and purpose. We're living through challenging times. And this obviously wakes us up and says, are we asking enough questions? Are we investigating? Are we digging deeper enough? And so when we do our tefillin in the morning, don't just do your tefillin. Ask, why am I doing the tefillin? What is it supposed to change within me? Or whatever it may be. Shabbos, shofar, mezuzah, family purity. There's so many positive mitzvahs that God, tzitzit, so many positive mitzvahs that God has given us. But those are all rituals. Now the job we've got to do is to expose the godliness that's there. That's our job. Find the neshama, the meaning behind it. So we should be asking these questions long before the non-Jewish visitor visits our home and we suddenly feel very intimidated. We have to know all the answers. We should know the answers to ourselves because we need to be motivated and uplifted and in touch with God himself, not just the ritual on a superficial level. Anybody want to engage? Comments, questions? I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to put a comment in the comments bar. Questions or your own insights. Norman. Please give the reasons for the rituals of Friday night. Never thought of it that way. Good. That's what we're here for. We're here. Coronavirus has locked us down at home. Michael, can you teach us some of the means and depths of doing these things? Okay. So I'm happy that I've hit a right chord, a right nerve. Interesting, both father and son, Norman and Michael, both comment on this point. The apple doesn't fall too far away from the tree. So I'm happy that I've just aroused the concept. Maybe in the forthcoming days, we'll be able to dig a little bit deeper, to be able to understand the meaning behind some of these rituals that we're involved in all the time, so that we can expose the neshama behind the physicality, expose the neshama behind the nature of the world, expose the neshama behind our activity, expose the neshama behind the other individual. You see, it's a thread of concepts that thread throughout. We're finding the depths behind everything, behind the person, behind the world, behind nature, behind physicality, behind challenges, behind rituals and mitzvot. We learn do's and don'ts. We never explore the depth of a mitzvah. Exactly. We need to do that too. In addition to the halacha and the Jewish practice, we need to find the depths and the meaning. Norman Sainz says a tree grew next to the apple. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so we've got our minds ticking. It's been good to engage. Thank you for joining us here today. We've had an international classroom between Australia, I think Israel as well, and Johannesburg, obviously. We've been live on YouTube. We've been live on Facebook. Best regards. Have a fantastic day ahead. Keep safe, keep sane. And we'll be back tomorrow. Same place, same time. Wishing you all a wonderful day ahead. Take care of yourselves. I can't see this.